Hey there, fellow Patriots. Welcome back to another episode of Patriots of the American Republic. We've got a situation here that I think it needs to be reviewed and looked over and kind of assessed, right? So for many years, I've always wondered why our laws are so lenient towards people who harm children, in an adult manner, right? As a young father, but even before that, I always saw children as the most innocent and precious beings, and no one should do anything to harm them, and we should do everything and anything to protect and defend children. And as I grew up, I started to realize the reason that, perhaps these laws are so lenient could be because these people in high places are consumers of this disgusting business. In my personal opinion, we have people on all sides of the political aisle that may secretly be consumers and or are involved in this type of world, right? I mean, when you look at our lawmakers, their mothers, their fathers, their aunts, uncles, grandparents, these people should be making, these types of crimes, like, they should be making, like, the consequence of these crimes, they should be at a medieval level. And yet, it's not. They're very weak in many cases. And when it comes to Democrats, forget it. In some cases, they don't even want to extend any type of punitive measures. They refuse to increase the punishment in some cases, and we've actually gone over that in a previous episode, right? Now, since the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein, the right has been trying to raise hell over the revelation of the clients associated to the accusations on Jeffrey and people who actively and knowingly participated in these alleged heinous things with him, right? So now that we are in power, where do we stand with this situation? Where do we stand in this case? So the things that we're going to go over today are a little bit disappointing. I shouldn't say a little bit. They're very, very, very disappointing as a person who is on the right, as a person who's a conservative, as a person who's a Trump supporter, and more so as a parent. Let's add a little bit of background. As much as I love President Trump and I support him, I cannot look the other way when something so serious regarding human trafficking and sex slavery of minors, as Epstein is being accused of. I just can't turn the cheek. I can't do it. President Trump and members of his current team talked big when they weren't in office. So when they finally got into power, we were expecting no shenanigans like we had in the previous administration. Here's what our leaders said prior to taking office.
It's just very strange for a lot of people that the list of clients that went to the island has not been made public.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Probably will be, by the way. Probably.
So if you're able to, you'll be...
Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it. Now, Kennedy's interesting because it's so many years ago. They do that for danger, too, because, endangers certain people, et cetera, et cetera. So Kennedy is very different from the Epstein thing. But yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
It's the same thing with Epstein's list. It's like, what the hell are these Republicans doing?
I saw you make news this morning about that. I got to get to that. You say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. That seems like an evil thing to do, regardless of who may be embarrassed in the release of that list. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list. You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list? And why is it that the Senate, and good for Senator Blackburn to try to get it out, but then Dick Durbin comes over the top and says, no, we're not going to release the names. I don't care about the list itself, but if you release the names, right? What the hell are the House Republicans doing? They have the majority. You can't get the list? You're going to accept Dick Durbin's word, or whoever that guy is, as to who is on that list and who isn't, and that it can and can't be released? Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are. We have an election coming up, and we need to adjudicate this matter at the polls. God knows the FBI and DOJ aren't going to do anything. But how are you going to reward the FBI with a new headquarters building after their illegal surveillance on Donald Trump continues with a reauthorization of FISA and we can't even get basic documents out. This is why America hates Congress. And this is why I'm tired of the Republican majority saying they're going to get the job done and failing. Again, logical play out. If there was a video of some guy or gal committing felonies on an island and I'm in charge, don't you think you'd see it?
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list.
So these people talked a pretty good game when they weren't in power. Now, it was announced just this week by Attorney General Pam Bondi that there is no client list. And now both sides of the political aisle are up in arms regarding this announcement. Let's take a listen.
Overnight, the FBI and Justice Department releasing 11 hours of footage they say helps confirm notorious financier Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide in his Manhattan jail cell in 2019, awaiting his sex trafficking trial. According to a memo detailing the findings, investigators found the video showed no one entering the area in the overnight hours before Epstein was found unresponsive. But perhaps the biggest bombshell, investigators say they found no incriminating client list of Epstein's, no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals, and no evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. For years, Epstein has been at the center of conspiracies surrounding both his death and a rumored client list allegedly used to blackmail powerful men.
So this official statement from the Attorney General has left the right very displeased and has fueled ammo on the left. I mean, just a few months ago, Pam Bondi was on Fox and was asked a very, very specific question. Let's take a listen.
One of the things that you alluded to, and this is something Donald Trump has talked about, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything there? You said, oh my gosh.
Not yet.
So this clip is damning for Pam Bondi because the question was very, very specific, and it was specific around the list. And she answered, it's on my desk. But watch how she and the White House press secretary, which I'm both a big fan of both of them, watch how they try to spin this.
So the FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network, on Fox News.
Got the quote.
Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
So Peter Doocy doing what Peter Doocy does, and I'm glad, because even though he's on Fox, he's pushing back like he's supposed to on this. And I'm sorry, as a big fan of Pam Bondi that I am, since she used to be the Florida Attorney General, what she meant was not what she was asked. So excuse the rest of us for not being mind readers and instead going based off of what you said in respect to the question that you were asked, right? The ask was specific to the list, not the files. So you can try and muddy that, and that's fine, and that's probably what she meant, but that's not what she said because that's not what she was asked. That's all I'm saying. And it's not looking good because, again, it's giving the left a lot of ammo. It's giving them a lot of unnecessary ammo if there isn't a cover-up, right? If there is, then it's rightfully so. Unfortunately, though, President Trump made matters worse today in his response to the question being asked from a reporter regarding her statement in this case. Let's take a look.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the set?
Yeah, sure. If
Pam, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First,
listen, I understand that President Trump may be annoyed because the left likes to ask stupid questions at stupid times, but this is a legitimate question. He may not like the question because of, certain things that are going on at that moment. Like the tragedy happening right now in Texas and all the winning that he articulated. But to be very blunt, the winning with this scenario is irrelevant because it's just like the Texas flooding. It's a tragedy. We don't care about Epstein himself. What we care about is exposing those who partook in what this guy allegedly did. And we want justice for the victims of those children. We want people to be held accountable for the deviant crimes or the alleged deviant crimes, as was promised to us by, multiple members of this administration. Let's take a look.
But in this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
Names. I don't see how it's not shocking that there were so many individuals that were hidden and kept secret and not been held accountable. Let's talk about the reverse. I believe in accountability. So you have to now go through your process. Now, I won't say they're guilty until they go through their time in court. But again, now it's time for accountability. We have seen for so many years, Pierce, in this country, many investigations, subpoenas, testimonies in Congress, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a general frustration with accountability. We take it halfway, we don't take it home. And I really believe that now with Cash and Pam, there will be accountability.
This was extremely tone deaf by our president, unfortunately, because God forbid one of his offsprings was a victim of such things. He wouldn't dare be so callous towards it. This was very damaging and yet again fuels and provides unnecessary ammo for the left. Now, I don't know if this is a tweet, I don't know where this is from, but Alex Jones believes that Trump's response was a setup for the deep state. Based on how Trump manages to play everyone in the room, there's a possibility of that. But man, does this not taste good at the moment. Especially as a parent of 5. This one stings, to be quite frank. So now, why the sudden change? I mean, we showed how these guys were talking a big game before they came into power. Obviously, the left is going to do everything that they can, everything and anything, to try and connect President Trump to Epstein. Even though Epstein's lawyer himself came out just a few weeks ago after Elon had made his accusations and cleared Trump of those accusations. Let's take a look as a reminder.
So take a look at this on screen. Epstein's own lawyer, David Schoen, who was hired to defend Epstein 9 days before he died, well, he said this, quote, "I was hired to lead Jeffrey Epstein's defense as his criminal lawyer 9 days before he died, and he sought my advice for months before that. I can say authoritatively, unequivocally, definitively that he had no information to hurt President Trump. I specifically asked him." Then in response to Roger Stone, who wrote that Donald Trump is not in the Epstein files, here are the facts, David Schoen responded, "I could tell you unequivocally as someone who would know that President Trump never did anything wrong with Jeffrey Epstein." So according to Epstein's own lawyer, he specifically asked, and Epstein had supposedly no information on Donald Trump. So far, evidence tying Donald Trump to any of Epstein's nefarious activities, well, nothing, nada.
Despite the left's attempt, at conspiracy theories, right? The right also has some theories of their own as well, and one of which is that Epstein was a foreign agent, and there are people in very high places on that list, which is why it's, this is why we're at where we're at. Now, I was unfamiliar with this theory up until I started doing research for this episode, but apparently it's a story that's out there, and it's a story that was shared by Dan Bongino. Let's take a listen.
So fast forward this story, right? He tells me that about a year and a half after that, I'm in a green room at Fox, and I'm not going to say who because they didn't give me permission to share it, but the story, but I know who they are. Says, Epstein's an intelligence asset for people in the Middle East, right? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. I'm like, you sure of that? The person, let's say, is like, I'm absolutely sure of that. That he's either a witting or unwitting asset, intelligence asset, meaning his plane and that island, the cameras, there's a big assumption out there that these videotapes were exclusively in the custody of Epstein. That's a huge mistake. The reason they wanted this story to go away is because there's an assumption like, oh yeah, Epstein had him. No, he wasn't the only one who had him, according to this source. These assets, that's why this blackmail story makes so much sense. Which Middle Eastern countries they are, I don't know, but this person who's a very, very good reporter, I mean, aces, right? Swore Epstein was either a witting or unwitting intelligence asset, and they may have had his plane wired up, and they're the ones who have all this stuff. So the point is, to sum it up, how do you know some of these countries aren't going to some of these power players who aren't making decisions? Because, hey, you wouldn't want this video out there, right? How do you know?
100%.
I mean,
again, I don't know if any of this is true or not, but this sudden shift smells fishy in every angle and in many different ways. But apparently, we've gone from this can't be suicide to now it's confirmed that it's a suicide.
And this is where the rubber hits the road.
RFK, I got to check back on that one. There is more coming on the Epstein files. Listen, I know this is a hot potato for folks. I totally understand. My comments were clear. I'm not paid for my opinions anymore. I work for the taxpayer now. I'm paid on evidence. That's it. The evidence we have in our files clearly indicates that it was, in fact, a suicide. We do have video. It's not the greatest video in the world. I don't want to set expectations on fire. However, the video does show in that specific block that he goes in, made a phone call. You'll see 12 hours of guards going to basically check on him, come back. You'll see no one really comes out in that bay, in that area, than him. There's no one in there. When you combine that with the other evidence we will be releasing in the coming weeks, we're still finalizing some of the products. I think it's pretty clear. However, as I've clearly indicated in some of my tweets on my official account, listen, investigations, if new information surfaces in the future on any of these cases, we're always open. I'm just telling you, there's nothing there in the file at all that indicates anything other than, in fact, a suicide.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
I know it's hard work.
This sudden shift doesn't sit well for me, to be quite frank, for a lot of us, I would imagine, just because of the heinous accusations involving what was happening. I mean, it's not cool, right? And at the moment, this is a harsh blow for this administration, and many of us on the right who had expectations of transparency regarding this administration. This isn't, like I said, some silly situation. We're talking about hundreds, if not thousands, of child victims. And to be quite frank, I think Alex Stein manages to articulate the sentiment nicer than I can articulate it. Let's take a listen to Alex Stein here on this.
Alex, what's happened here? A lot of people are not buying this.
Yeah, nobody's buying it here in America. You have the left wing and the right wing yelling at Pam Bondi for some transparency. And sadly, we're not going to get it because I think that the people that are connected to the Jeffrey Epstein debacle are some high, powerful people that would cause geopolitical conflicts with other countries. And I think that's what it really comes down to, that it's now a matter of national security to keep this list private. And nobody on both sides agrees with that strategy. I mean, we all wanted transparency. Donald Trump campaigned on it, and now Pam Bondi is walking back what she said she was going to do. So I'm just telling you, even the most loyal Donald Trump supporters on social media are asking questions. Why are we not getting these answers when you said that they were going to give us? And we don't want to see victims. It's not that we want to try to expose any victims. We just want to expose the actors and the powerful people that were doing this on an island with children. So there's no excuse. And this is a big missed opportunity from the Trump administration for not giving us the transparency that so many Americans really want on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, I completely.
To echo Alex Stein, both the left and the right members on both sides of the political aisle are voicing their concerns regarding this situation, and there are people on both sides of the spectrum that are calling for Pam Bondi's resignation. Will that happen? I don't think so. I think that Trump has a lot of trust in her. I still need more info to even come to that conclusion. Just right now, this whole scenario is just not sitting good. And it's not just her. It's all of them. It's not just Pam Bondi. We can't just use Pam Bondi as an scapegoat. I've shown you Kash Patel. Again, I'm fans of these people. I showed you Dan Bongino. I've showed you even the president himself. So this is something that is on this administration, and we on the right have to own this as well, because, we're part of it. But at this juncture, all we can do is just wait and hope something changes, so that these victims can get justice, and these disgusting people can rot in prison, which, to be honest with you, it's too good for them. Again, we need to do some type of medieval level type of punishment with these types of scenarios. But it is what it is. This is where we're at. I hope that I don't know, man. Sometimes I talk to my wife, and I go, we were watching Aladdin the other day, right? And the Three Wishes and stuff. And one of the things that I said, I wish that, no child would ever suffer. And that encompassed DNA mutations, and suffering of this type of manner, right? No child should have their innocence robbed from them. And so this is a very serious situation. And I hope that something changes so that these people who did this don't get away with it. Guys, that's it for today, for this episode. Thank you so much for joining in. I do want to just say a prayer for all the victims that have been impacted and the families over in Texas. And I'd also like to also recognize the victims from this Jeffrey Epstein situation. May our Lord, comfort everyone. May they seek him for comfort. And may his spirit comfort all of these people, all of these individuals, including our country as a whole. So thank you again for joining, and I will see you guys on the next time. Take care. Bye-bye.